I'm interested to have you reflect a little bit about the the leader you became in that crucible of very, very complex circumstances.
Right.
And have you talk a little bit also in that on that theme of the extent to which maybe in a more self-conscious way you began to think of yourself now as, you know, project director, a leader, a organizer, a
That's a good point. I'm not sure when I might have begun thinking of myself in that way. I think I've written someplace that when I looked back, without knowing it, that I had a feminist way of organizing in the sense of I was not for top down. I mean, you just had to be life and death, you know. And so, but then SNCC was a very ultra democratic. So probably that helped a lot. And so in the project, we discussed everything. Sometimes we, like SNCC before me, we'd meet for hours coming to decisions, and that seemed right to me. And so that form of leadership, that's where everybody has a say. You try to come to consensus as opposed to just a vote, unless you just cannot reach consensus. I realized that that was my way of, let's try to reach a consensus on these things, because all of our lives are on the line, and this project, these people, we can hop a Greyhound and go home, but they're at home. So everything we do is so important, so critical. Um, so that, and then also just being a woman, I often had to struggle around issues related to a woman being a project director. As I've learned, I think there were three of us in Mississippi that summer. And we had to fight for the resources. We had to fight to get a good car, because the guys would get first dibs on everything, and that wasn't fair. So that was another battle with Jackson over distribution of cars and good typewriters. And so, it was a struggle. And to be taken seriously by the leadership, as well as by your male colleagues. And the race factor also was a big one. I'm from Memphis. I'd been brought up in the total segregation until I met Staunton and some of the other white professors. I'd never had a relationship of equals. So here was a tremendous thing. So standing up to these white young men who were my age and a few years older, from Stanford, from Yale. I mean, we even had a Goodyear, and I mean, of the Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company, one of our volunteers. So there was class, there was race, and gender issues just swirling. And one of the things that we often don't talk about, but there was sexual harassment that often happened toward the women. And so that was one of the things that, I took a stand on. That this was not, we're not going to get a consensus on this. There is not going to be sexual harassment of any of the women on this project or any of the women in this community. And you will be put out if you do it.
I bet that's a really interesting point. I bet in those at that time, and I bet you didn't use the phrase sexual harassment.
No.
Did you? What would the language have been?
I'm wondering.
To employ to make that point then?
That's a good question. It's like, guys, you cannot force a woman to do anything that she doesn't want to do on this project. Because I had seen a little of that at the orientation, and I had seen it prior to going to the orientation. Strong arming women, and I was furious, because here we are, and I had, had my own um, situation that happened to me there, and someone whom I trusted and thought, I looked up to, and I was sexually assaulted. So here's like, oh my God, we're going into the lion's den and we've got to be worried about our comrades. That was a no no. That was an absolute no no.
As project director in that context, could you, on your authority, could you have dismissed someone?
I sure thought I could, and I said I would.
Right.
I mean, they probably would have been sent to Jackson and had to go somewhere else, but
Yeah.
that was an absolute fatwa. You are not doing that on this project.